Her body trembled in his arms, lighter than he ever thought possible, yet burning with a fever that scorched his skin. Her breath came ragged, shallow, and desperate. She gripped his shirt with surprising strength, her wide emerald eyes locking onto his. Her lips parted, quivering, and the words that spilled from them made his blood run cold. "It's going to kill me, take it out." The plea was raw, torn from her throat, filled with terror. Yet even in that moment of panic, her face glowed with a beauty so alien, so unearthly, that he couldn't look away. Her silver hair clung to her damp skin, her pointed ears flicked weakly as if fighting against surrender. She was dying, yes, but she was also the most captivating creature he had ever seen. He should have felt fear, only fear, but what burned inside him was something else entirely. Desire, protectiveness, and a strange, terrifying certainty that he could not let her go. Not her. Not tonight. The human's heartbeat thundered as he lowered her carefully onto the blanket he had spread inside the tent. The jungle outside hissed and whispered, shadows moving beneath the canopy, but all he saw was her. A tiny warrior, her frame delicate but her spirit unyielding, though now it flickered like a candle at the edge of extinguishing. His name was Callan, and he had spent months stranded on this hostile world, surviving on wit and stubbornness. He had fought beasts that could swallow him whole, storms that shredded steel, and loneliness so sharp it had carved his soul into something harder than he remembered being. But nothing in his life had prepared him for her, this strange, fierce creature who had burst into his camp with a blade in one hand and blood trailing from her side. Her hands clutched at him again, nails grazing his skin through the thin fabric of his shirt. He swallowed hard, fighting the urge to pull her closer, to press his lips against her fevered forehead, to promise her safety he wasn't sure he could give. "Stay with me," he whispered instead, his voice hoarse, unsure if he was speaking to her or himself. She blinked slowly, her lashes brushing against pale skin, her pupils wide and shining in the dim lantern light. The wound was like nothing he had ever seen. Just below her ribs, a faint pulsing glow emanated beneath her flesh, as if something alive writhed inside. His stomach tightened. He had seen parasitic organisms on this planet before, but none that could worm into a body this way. She winced as his fingers brushed the edge of her wound, her cry both pained and intimate, sending a shiver through him. It was wrong, he knew it was madness, but the sound of her voice, even strained with agony, pulled at something deep inside him. She wasn't just another being fighting for survival. She was something more. And against every instinct screaming that he should keep his distance, he wanted her alive. He wanted her safe. He wanted her. "I'll help you," he said, steadying his hands even as they trembled. "Just hold on." Her lips parted again, and he expected more pain, more pleading. Instead, she whispered words that nearly undid him. Why are you helping me, human?" Her accent was sharp, clipped, as though she wasn't used to forming his tongue. Yet the words carried weight. A challenge. A question he wasn't ready to answer. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the strange glow beneath her skin. The truth pressed against his ribs like a second heartbeat. He was helping her because the thought of her dying in his arms was unbearable. Because in her eyes, even filled with fear, he saw a reflection of something he hadn't felt in years, connection. Because despite everything, he already cared. But he couldn't say that aloud, not yet. So he met her gaze and said the only thing he could. "Because you asked me to." Her throat tightened, her eyes glistening. She turned her face slightly, almost as if embarrassed by his words, and for the first time since she collapsed, her grip on his shirt softened. She trusted him at least enough to let him try. He leaned closer, inhaling the strange scent of her skin like rain on stone, sharp yet sweet. His fingers pressed lightly, searching for a way to draw the parasite out. Every brush of his hand made her gasp, every tremor of her body a reminder of how close she was to death. The glow beneath her ribs brightened for a moment, and she cried out, arching against him. His arm went around her instinctively, pulling her into his chest, cradling her trembling body against his own. The intimacy of the gesture struck him like a blade. She wasn't just fighting a parasite. She was fighting to stay alive in his arms, trusting a stranger with her very soul. "Don't let me go," she whispered, her voice breaking. "If it takes me, don't let me go alone." The words shattered him. He had fought so long alone, had dreamed of nothing more than someone to stand beside him. And now, here she was, fragile and fierce, asking him for something he couldn't refuse. His lips brushed against her temple, so close, his voice barely audible. "I won't. Not ever." Her breath hitched, her trembling easing for the briefest moment as though his words anchored her. His hands moved again, careful, searching. The glow pulsed stronger, the parasite resisting him, and he realized the only way to save her might demand something beyond first aid. Something invasive, intimate, dangerous. A bond formed not by choice but by necessity. If he failed, he would lose her. If he succeeded, he didn't know what they would become. Outside, the jungle roared with unseen predators, but the real danger was here, in his tent, pressed against his chest. The tiny alien warrior whose heartbeat now raced with his, whose breath mingled with his own, whose life hung on the edge of a blade he couldn't see. Callan's jaw tightened as he made his choice. He would save her, no matter the cost. Because somewhere between the fear and the fire, he already knew she had become his reason to fight. And as her eyes closed, her lips brushing against his ear, she whispered one last time, "Take it out." The words weren't just a plea for survival anymore. They were a surrender. To him. To trust. To the bond neither of them could deny. Her breathing had steadied, but only just. The alien warrior lay curled beneath the threadbare blanket, silver hair spilling across his arm like liquid light. Callan pressed a damp cloth to her temple, listening to the faint hum in her chest, that unnatural vibration that seemed to crawl under her skin and thrum against his bones. The parasite was still there, coiled inside her, and he could feel it fighting for dominance. She opened her eyes, pupils dilated like black suns. "We don't let outsiders touch us," she whispered. Her voice was weak but carried the weight of an oath. "It is forbidden. If my people knew I let you this close, they would kill us both." "Then it's a good thing your people aren't here," Callan replied. His attempt at a smile came out more as a grimace, but she almost laughed. Almost. Then her face twisted, a spasm running down her side. He pulled her closer, feeling her nails dig into his wrist as she fought not to cry out. "You said it's inside you." He swallowed hard, forcing himself to look at the faint pulsing light under her ribs. "What is it?" She closed her eyes, trembling. "A hunter's gift. They call it the ember worm. They plant it in the defeated. If it matures, it consumes the heart. My people believe it's an honor to die this way, proof you fought." Her voice cracked, and she shook her head. "But I don't want to die, human. Not yet. Not like this." Something in him broke at the plea. He had seen countless soldiers beg for their lives on the battlefield, but this wasn't fear of death, not really. It was longing. A hunger to live, to feel, to taste something beyond endless war. He brushed her hair from her face and met her gaze. "Then you won't," he said simply. She studied him as though trying to pierce through his words to find the truth beneath. "You would risk yourself? For me?" He gave a small shrug, though his heart hammered in his chest. "I've fought beasts bigger than shuttles and storms that could tear a man in half. Saving you? It feels like the only fight worth having." Her lips parted, but whatever words she meant to speak were stolen by another surge of pain. She arched against him again, her small body racked with tremors. He could feel it now, the parasite moving, spreading. He didn't have time to think. He reached for the medkit, fingers fumbling through vials and instruments. His training was in survival, in patching wounds until help arrived, but help wasn't coming. He was all she had. "I need you to trust me," he said, pulling out a slender scalpel, his hand tightening around the hilt. "I don't know what this thing is, but I can cut it out before it reaches your heart." "I can." Her hand shot out, gripping his wrist with surprising force. "No blade," she gasped. "If you cut me, it will scatter. It will root in you too." His throat went dry. "Then how?" Her gaze locked onto his, emerald fire burning through the haze of pain. "There is another way. But it is forbidden. Sacred. My people would rather die than share it with an outsider." She hesitated, her lips trembling. "But if I don't, I will be gone before your sun rises." He wanted to ask. He wanted to demand answers. But her voice cracked with desperation, and her body shook harder. She pressed her palm to his chest, just above his heart, and he felt the faint brush of energy, a warmth spreading into him. It was like the first touch of fire on cold hands, painful, intoxicating, impossible to pull away from. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "Bonding," she breathed. "If you accept me, I can push it into you, only for a moment. Your body, your blood, it is stronger than mine. Together, we might kill it before it takes us both." But, her voice faltered. "If you let me in, there will be no separation. Ever. You will feel me as I feel you. You will know me, as no one is meant to know." The words hit him like a blade and a promise all at once. A bond deeper than flesh, deeper than any intimacy he had ever dared to imagine. Her fear was painted across her face, but beneath it was something else, a flicker of longing, a question she didn't voice. Callan's mind raced. He had always thought of himself as practical, a survivor who measured every risk against the odds. And yet here he was, considering letting an alien parasite flow into his veins just to keep this fragile warrior alive. He should refuse. He should pull away, fortify the tent, leave her to her people's traditions. But when he looked into her eyes, he knew he never would. He tightened his grip on her hand. "Do it," he whispered. Her lips curved into the ghost of a smile, both sorrowful and beautiful. She shifted closer, her chest pressed against his, her forehead resting against his neck. "Then, hold me. Don't let go. No matter what you feel." The words were barely out of her mouth before the glow beneath her ribs flared. He felt it, like molten fire threading from her body into his, racing along his veins, searing his nerves. He gasped, but she clung to him, her lips brushing his ear again as she murmured in her language, words he couldn't understand but felt deep in his bones. His vision blurred. The world seemed to twist, the walls of the tent bending inward. The sounds of the jungle outside dulled, replaced by something else, her heartbeat, thundering in time with his own. He could feel her memories bleeding into him, flashes of starlit skies over crystal oceans, the clash of steel in endless battles, the loneliness of a warrior who had never been touched in tenderness. He wanted to let go, to pull back from the fire searing his veins, but he remembered her words. "Don't let me go." So he held tighter, burying his face in her hair, whispering promises he wasn't sure he could keep. Her breath hitched again, and then she screamed, a sound that tore through him, not just with his ears but inside his chest. He felt the parasite lashing, twisting, striking at both of them. It was alive, furious, determined to survive. He saw flashes of its hunger in his mind, felt the gnawing ache in his heart as if the creature sought to burrow into him now. His grip faltered. His vision swam. He could feel her slipping, her energy draining like sand through his fingers. He forced himself to focus, to hold on. "Stay with me," he whispered. "We're in this together now." Her eyes fluttered open, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You don't even know my name," she whispered. "Then tell me," he urged, voice cracking. Her lips trembled. "Lyra," she breathed. The glow beneath her skin pulsed violently, brighter than ever, flooding the tent with searing light. She arched against him one last time, her cry cutting through the night. He clutched her to him, feeling the parasite's heat surge from her body into his own, a wave of agony and ecstasy that made his vision go white. And then, silence. Her body went limp in his arms, her head falling back, her lips parted but still. The glow in her chest flickered once, twice, and then dimmed. He stared at her face, pale as moonlight, waiting for the rise and fall of her chest. Waiting for a breath. Waiting for anything. But there was nothing. A sound broke the silence, harsh, guttural, and close. Outside the tent, shadows shifted. Figures emerged from the tree line, their eyes glowing the same furious light he had seen inside her body. Spears gleamed in the lantern's glow, aimed at him. He tightened his hold on Lyra, her weight featherlight in his arms, and lifted his head to face them. The tallest of the warriors stepped forward, his voice like stone grinding against stone. "You have touched her, human. You carry what was meant for her. For that, you will die." And as the warriors raised their blades, Callan realized the parasite inside him was not gone. It was awake. The jungle was alive with hostile eyes. Dozens of them. The alien warriors emerged from the shadows in a crescent, their slender forms glistening in the lantern's glow. Spears tipped with crystal blades gleamed like captured lightning. They moved silently, like predators, their feline ears twitching, their faces painted in streaks of silver and black. Callan's first instinct was to reach for his weapon, but Lyra's weight in his arms stopped him. She was limp, her breath shallow, her chest dimly pulsing with that faint ember of light. She was dying, and now, he carried the thing inside him as well. He could feel it gnawing, burrowing, tasting him. A phantom heat spread through his chest, and it took everything he had not to double over. The tallest warrior stepped closer, his expression hard and unyielding. His eyes lingered on Lyra's pale form. "You dishonor us, sister," he said in their language. His voice was sharp enough to cut through the night air. "You let an outsider touch you. Worse, you let him share the ember." Callan stiffened. He caught only fragments of their speech, his grasp of their tongue shaky at best, but he understood enough. They knew. They knew the parasite had passed into him. Another warrior stepped forward, her face twisted in rage. "He carries it now. The punishment is clear. Both must burn." The parasite writhed inside him, a snake made of molten iron curling beneath his ribs. He gritted his teeth, tightening his hold around Lyra's body. She stirred faintly, whispering his name again. Hearing it from her lips, even in that state, filled him with a fierce determination. He raised his head, meeting the leader's gaze. "I don't care what your laws say. I'm not leaving her. If you want me dead, you'll have to kill me. But she lives." The warriors hissed, their ears flattening. Spears angled forward. For a heartbeat, Callan thought it was over. He shifted, shielding her small body with his own, ready to absorb the strike if he had to. He would not let them end her, not after she had chosen him, even for a heartbeat. Then Lyra stirred. Her hand slid from his chest to the ground, fingers splayed in the dirt. Her lips moved again, whispering words that carried on the wind. The air shimmered. The soil beneath them pulsed faintly, like a drum. The warriors froze. Their leader's eyes widened, rage giving way to something that looked unsettlingly like fear. "No, you didn't," he hissed. Callan looked down, bewildered. A faint pattern of glowing veins spread from where Lyra's hand pressed into the earth, spiraling outward in delicate arcs of light. He felt it in his chest too, like a second heartbeat pulsing not from his own heart but from the creature inside him. Except, it wasn't only the parasite's rhythm. It was hers. And it was his. She opened her eyes, though her voice was still weak. "It is done. The bond is sealed." He swallowed. "What does that mean?" Her gaze softened. "It means, I will live. If you live. Our hearts are one now." His mind spun. One heartbeat. One life shared between them. He wanted to demand explanations, to push her for answers, but the circle of warriors had begun to chant. The ground vibrated under their feet, their voices weaving together in a rhythm that resonated painfully with the thing inside him. "They will tear us apart," Lyra whispered, her small fingers clinging to his shirt again. "They cannot allow this union. It breaks everything they believe." "Then we run," Callan said. He adjusted his hold, cradling her against him like something fragile but fiercely precious. "We find that cure. Together." She gave a faint laugh, bitter and sweet all at once. "You don't even know the cost. You don't know what this bond will demand of you." He looked at her, the lantern light painting her face in gold, her eyes burning with that impossible green fire. "Then teach me," he said softly. "I don't care what it costs." The chanting of her people grew louder, spears glowing brighter. The leader raised his weapon high, and the jungle seemed to hold its breath. Callan shifted his grip, grabbed his blade with his free hand, and locked eyes with the warriors. "You'll have to go through me first," he growled. The leader's gaze flicked to Lyra, then back to him. Something like disgust twisted his face. "So be it. If you have chosen her, then you will share her fate." The first spear flew. Callan twisted, his body shielding hers, and felt the air sing as the weapon buried itself in the ground inches from his knee. His own heart seized, a sharp pain radiating from his chest, and he staggered. The parasite inside him screamed in silent rage, thrashing like a beast in a cage. He tasted iron on his tongue. Lyra pressed her hand harder to his chest, her voice rising in a desperate chant. The glow beneath her skin spread across both their bodies now, casting them in a halo of light. The warriors faltered, some stepping back, others gripping their spears tighter. The leader snarled. "Blasphemy! You defile our bond with this animal." Callan felt anger flare hot in his veins, but it was more than his anger. It was hers too. He could feel her fury flooding into him, could hear her thoughts like whispers. "Don't let them take me. Don't let me die. Stay with me." He tightened his grip on his blade, his vision sharpening, every sound amplified, every movement of the warriors slowed to a crawl. It wasn't just adrenaline. It was her strength, her warrior's spirit, flowing into him through the bond. He realized, with a jolt of terror and awe, that this parasite, the ember worm, wasn't just trying to consume them. It was binding them together, weaving their lives into one. He had never felt more alive. Or more terrified. The leader raised his hand again, ready to unleash the full fury of his warriors. Callan braced himself, holding Lyra close, feeling her heart beat in time with his own. Then, just as the first warrior lunged forward, Lyra's eyes snapped open. Her voice rang out, stronger than before, filled with a resonance that made the air itself vibrate. Enough. The glow around them exploded outward like a storm. The circle of warriors staggered back, their weapons dimming in their hands. The leader froze, his arm trembling as though pinned in place by an invisible force. Callan stared, his breath caught in his throat. Lyra was glowing brighter now, her body no longer frail but radiant, alive, pulsing with power that coursed through him as well. He felt it in his bones, in his blood, in the burning core of the parasite that seemed to be unraveling inside him. She sat up, still leaning into him for support, but her eyes burned with emerald fire. "He is mine," she said, her voice carrying through the clearing like a blade cutting the night. "Harm him, and you answer to me." The warriors exchanged uneasy glances. The leader's face twisted in fury, then fear, then something else entirely, respect, perhaps, or resignation. His spear lowered. One by one, the others followed. But before Callan could breathe relief, Lyra gasped, clutching at her chest. The glow flared, brighter, hotter, until it seared his own veins. He fell with her, both of them writhing in the lantern's glow. He heard the parasite scream again, not just in his chest, but in his mind. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was Lyra's trembling hand reaching for his cheek, her lips shaping words he almost understood. "Don't let go." Then the world went black. Darkness stretched like an ocean, and for a heartbeat, maybe an eternity, Callan drifted inside it. He was aware of nothing but the sound of two heartbeats, his and Lyra's, tangled into one rhythm. Every thrum carried both his blood and hers, every pulse a reminder that he was no longer only himself. Then came the fire. It burned through him, searing down every vein, wrapping his chest in chains of light. He arched in pain, gasping soundlessly, vision scattering into shards of green. Somewhere, distant yet impossibly near, he heard her voice. "Hold, human. Do not let it take you." He forced his jaw shut to keep from screaming. His fingers sought hers, and when their hands locked together, the fire shifted. It wasn't just destruction, it was hunger, confusion, rage. The parasite was searching for dominance, thrashing between their bodies, testing for weakness. But where it found gaps, their joined hands closed them. Where it tried to burrow, their shared heartbeat pushed it back. Callan felt her fear as if it were his own, but also her strength, her pride, her stubborn refusal to surrender. And beneath it, to his shock, was something softer, the warmth of longing she had buried her entire life. The weight of it nearly broke him. She had been taught to fight and die, never to lean on another. Yet here she was, asking him to carry her pain. A sudden silence swept through the tent. He opened his eyes to see the alien warriors frozen at the edges of the glow, their spears slack in their hands. The leader, the tall one with the jagged scar across his cheek, stared at Lyra with a mixture of awe and fury. "It has chosen," the leader growled, though his voice cracked at the edges. "The ember has bound you." To him. Lyra's body shuddered, her forehead pressed against Callan's chest. Her voice was raw, but firm. Yes. He is mine. I am his. The Ember knows. The leader bared his teeth. Blasphemy. His hand tightened on his spear, yet he didn't throw it. None of them did. The glow around Callan and Lyra had grown too bright, a shimmering cocoon of emerald fire that made the warriors hesitate. It was not supposed to happen this way. The parasite was their trial by death, not a bond. Callan shifted, propping Lyra against his chest, shielding her with his body. He had no idea what any of this meant in their culture, but he could feel the parasite weakening, crumbling inside him. His heart beat harder, slower, steadier. The pain was still there, but it was shared, halved, and in that sharing it became bearable. Lyra lifted her gaze to his, her lips trembling, her breath hot against his skin. "We are one now," she whispered. "Do you understand?" He didn't, not fully. But he nodded anyway. "Then we'll fight as one." Her lips brushed his in the faintest of touches, not quite a kiss, more a promise. The warmth that flared through him wasn't only the parasite, it was her. And he knew then that if he lost her, he would not survive it. The leader of the warriors snarled again, lowering his spear. "If she has bonded, then she is no longer ours. She has chosen exile." His voice was thick with contempt, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of grief. "Take her and go. Leave our lands, before we decide her choice damns us all." Callan didn't wait for him to change his mind. He gathered Lyra in his arms, feeling her weight like a whisper, and pushed through the shimmering barrier of light. The warriors parted reluctantly, their eyes tracking him, but none dared to strike. The jungle swallowed them once more, shadows closing around them. Every step was agony. His chest burned, his vision blurred, but he pressed on, guided by instinct and the faint pull of her hand in his. She murmured directions, words half in her tongue, half in his, leading him deeper into the jungle. Toward the cure. Hours passed in a haze of heat and pain. Sometimes she would stir, her lips forming fragments of memory, names he didn't know, battles fought under alien stars, fragments of songs that filled his mind with aching beauty. Other times, it was his own memories she whispered back to him, the night sky above his home, the laughter of comrades long gone, the hollow silence of waking alone in a strange world. She carried his loneliness as though it were her own. At dawn, when the sky bled violet and gold, they stumbled into a clearing. At its center grew a tree unlike any he had ever seen. Its trunk shimmered with veins of crystal, and from its branches dripped glowing blossoms that pulsed in rhythm with their shared heartbeat. "This is it," she whispered, her voice faint but steady. "The heartroot. Its sap burns the worm." He laid her gently against the tree, pressing his hand to the bark. It thrummed under his palm, resonating with the parasite inside him. The light within her chest flickered erratically, brighter and brighter. "Quickly," she urged. "You must drink, then me. If the bond is true, the fire will turn." He didn't hesitate. He sliced the bark with his blade, watching luminous sap bead and drip like liquid starlight. He pressed his lips to it, the taste sweet and searing all at once. Fire roared through him again, but this time it wasn't the parasite. It was the tree, the life of the world itself flooding his veins. His body shook, his vision went white, and then the parasite screamed again, this time in pain. "Now," he gasped, pressing the sap to her lips. She drank, her throat working, her body trembling violently. The glow in her chest flared so bright it lit the clearing like dawn. For a terrible moment, he thought she would burn from the inside out. Then, with a final shriek, the parasite ripped itself free. A streak of molten light burst from her chest, lashing in the air like a serpent, before the glow of the heartroot consumed it. The thing writhed once, twice, and then disintegrated into sparks, vanishing into the morning sky. Silence fell again. Callan's heart pounded in his chest, still locked with hers. He looked down, terrified, praying. She was still. Too still. He pressed his forehead to hers. "Lyra, come back. Please. You can't leave me. Not now. Not when I just found you." His voice cracked, raw and desperate. "Don't you dare." For an endless moment, nothing. Then, Slowly, her chest rose. Her lips parted, and a shuddering breath escaped. Her emerald eyes fluttered open, clear now, glowing faintly but free of pain. "You," she whispered, her voice trembling with wonder. "You truly stayed." He laughed, half sob, half relief. "Told you I would." Her hand rose to his cheek, fragile but steady. "Where I come from," she whispered, "to bond is to bind. Our hearts beat together now. Our fates are one." She leaned forward, and this time her lips found his fully, soft, desperate, searing. It wasn't just a kiss, it was a vow. He felt her heart in it, pounding against his own, felt the warmth of her breath mingling with his. When she drew back, her eyes were still locked on his. "If you die," she whispered, "I die. If I fall, so do you. That is the law of the ember." He smiled faintly, brushing his thumb across her cheek. "Then we'll just have to make sure neither of us falls." The jungle stirred around them, the warriors gone, the dawn rising. For the first time since he'd crashed here, the air didn't feel hostile. It felt alive. Alive with promise, with danger, with love. He looked down at her, at the tiny warrior who had stolen his heart in a single night of fire and fear. She was no longer a stranger. She was his. And he was hers. But deep in his chest, beneath the steady drum of their shared heartbeat, he felt it, one last flicker. A whisper of heat. A reminder that the parasite was not entirely gone. He held her tighter, his lips against her hair. "Whatever it takes," he murmured. "We'll fight it. Together." And somewhere in the shadows of the waking jungle, unseen eyes still watched, waiting, hungering, biding their time. The bond had saved her life. But it had only just begun to test his.